If you are forcing answers, stop. Today, what decides is what you feel before you think. On the eve of the moon entering Pisces, the field trades hurry for perception. It is the internal tide that takes command of the helm. No more pushing closed doors. What is yours opens when you're in the right tone. This transit doesn't ask for noise. It asks for a fine reading. The body has already warned where energy flows and where it gets stuck. Notice your breathing when you consider saying yes. Notice the weight when you insist on what is already past its due date. The mind wants guarantees. Pisces asks for silent coherence. Less argument, more embodied truth. Today, one micro-decision made from the side of intuition is worth more than 10 promises said on autopilot. You don't need a mystical script. You need sincerity. If a situation drains you, it's a no with respect. If something lights you up, it's a yes with presence. The moon in Pisces amplifies subtle signs, coincidences, phrases that arrive at the exact right time, invitations that shine from within. It is not naive magic, it is practical spiritual direction. Your task is simple and demanding. Align your step to the reading of your own field and execute still today a gesture that confirms who you have decided to be. If this found you, write in the comments, intuition in command. There is a point in the day when the mind tires of arguing and the body takes the lead. It's there you realize you weren't without an answer. You were trying to force the wrong answer. As we approach the moon's entry into Pisces, the internal tide rises and reveals what was stranded on the rocks, promises made out of fear, commitments that no longer vibrate, expectations that depend on applause. When the water covers the noise, the only reliable compass is the feeling of truth that rises from beneath the thoughts. It doesn't need to convince, it just needs to be noticed. Notice how certain choices make the air around you lighter. It is not imagination. The body registers relief when you visit a path that is yours. The breath lengthens, the shoulders drop, the vision widens half a centimeter. The opposite is also real. When you insist on what no longer talks to your soul, time feels heavy. The voice comes out tight. The heart accelerates at the wrong time. These microsignals are not whims, they are language. Pisces translates the invisible by discreet means, like someone whispering in the hallway so as not to wake the whole house. But the noisy mind doesn't hear whispers. That's why the training is to lower the volume inside, not to be silent, but to listen. Intuition doesn't arrive to save you from thinking. It arrives to put thought in its place. First sensation, then meaning, then decision. This order is simple and, at the same time, demands maturity. Many people confuse intuition with desire. Desire demands now. Intuition accepts time. Desire needs approval. Intuition sustains itself. Desire is noisy. Intuition is firm. The approach of the moon in Pisces doesn't romanticize these processes. It demands honesty. If you call intuition that which only saves you from discomfort, it is escape. If you hear a yes that asks for posture, it is direction. There are choices you postpone because you fear losing territory. Curiously, that is where you lose energy. Maintaining what has already cooled down is costly. You pay in attention, in creativity, in sleep. When the Pisces tide comes in, it asks bluntly, what are you holding on to for fear of voids? And what do you choose to let go of so that your life can breathe again? You don't need to turn everything upside down, just a gesture that confirms what you already know. A conversation that defines boundaries. A cancellation that gives back hours. A route revision that exchanges effort for coherence. The universe responds to clear definitions. Even coincidence needs a verb to materialize. Many people say they don't trust their own intuition because it failed in the past. Almost always, what failed wasn't the intuition. It was the hurried reading. You caught a true signal, and in a hurry to turn it into a result, you fit it where it didn't belong. Pisces corrects this productive anxiety. It teaches that insight is not a contract, it is an invitation, and that every invitation requires preparation. When you honor the interval between perceiving and acting, the world gains precision. The yes arrives without guilt. The no arrives without anger. And the maybe becomes a not yet that preserves your strength for the right time. Notice also how the environment reflects your internal states. Throughout the day, phrases appear that seem to be answers to what you didn't say out loud. A message arrives the minute you decide to leave. An unforeseen event pushes back the meeting you were forcing. Don't treat this as luck or bad luck. Treat it as dialogue. You emit frequency with posture and thought. Life returns it with events and encounters. The sensitive tide of Pisces makes this back and forth explicit for those who are awake inside. If you harden, reality freezes. If you soften where firmness is needed, reality scatters. If you find the right tone, reality opens a path. There is a point where faith stops being a belief and becomes a method. It is not the method of control. It is the method of presence. To be present is to be whole in the gesture, being made now, without thinking of the applause afterward, without asking for a guarantee before. It is accepting that ultimately, the only reliable data is the vibration your body registers when facing the next choice. If it expands, you move forward. If it contracts, you postpone with responsibility. This simplicity does not impoverish life, it attunes it. And when life attunes, even what seemed complicated finds a track. In the end, the silence that points the way is not the absence of the world. It is the presence of self. You don't disappear to listen better. You show up inside, and then the rest organizes itself. If today a single decision can be born from this place, the month ends differently. The next door doesn't need force. It needs the you that is finally in the right tone to cross it. There are decisions the mind organizes with impeccable arguments, and even so, they don't move. A click is missing. This click rarely comes from more thought. It comes from the body. Before the moon enters Pisces, the field becomes more porous, and somatic intelligence takes over the panel for a few moments. It's when you realize that certain choices aren't understood, they are recognized. The body recognizes what is yours, like someone encountering an old perfume in the middle of the street. No speech, no report, just an "it's this way." You can call it intuition, instinct, or memory of the spirit. The name doesn't change the mechanics. First, a physical micro-adjustment, almost imperceptible. The breath lengthens, the jaw loosens, the vision clears. Then, a short, clean phrase emerges without flourish. I go, I stay, I end, I begin. On days like today, this is the phrase that decides. And this is where many people get confused. They think they need to feel euphoria to validate intuition. You don't. Euphoria is often disguised anxiety. The signal of truth rarely screams. It stabilizes. Observe how the body rejects paths that have already ended. You read the message and feel an unnecessary weight. You open the file and hear an exhaustion that isn't physical. You schedule a meeting and a discomfort appears hours before, like a gentle warning. When you ignore these signs, you pay with friction. Everything jams, silly mistakes accumulate, time stretches the wrong way. It's not punishment, it's being out of sync. The energy doesn't flow because the choice no longer talks with who you have become. The water of Pisces teaches a discipline that doesn't look like discipline. Instead of forcing the turn, you follow the wave until the passage opens. This isn't passivity, it's precision. Whoever acts with precision saves strength. Whoever forces out of habit wastes destiny. Sometimes, the exact action for today is to send a message that ends a cycle. Other times, it is to wait 24 hours for the conversation to happen in the right tone. The same gesture at another time becomes another result. Intuition is a fine reading of the when, not just the what. There is also the matter of fear. It has a talent for disguising itself as prudence. It speaks softly, uses pretty words. Better not to risk it. Maybe later. Let's wait for a clearer signal. The problem is the signal already came. You felt it before inventing an excuse. Pisces doesn't want you to eliminate fear. It wants you to stop giving it the microphone. Fear can sit in the audience. The direction of the movie is yours. And the best way to put fear back in its place is not to confront it with screams. It is to advance one small, coherent step that proves to your nervous system that you are safe while you move. Another common confusion is thinking intuition exempts you from consequence. On the contrary, it deepens it. The intuitive yes asks for presence during the process, not just courage at the beginning. You don't accept an opportunity because your heart raced for 3 minutes. You accept because after the racing, a grounded peace came that sustains the crossing. And grounded peace doesn't mean comfort all the time. It means that even when discomfort arises, you know why you are there. Notice also what life returns when you honor the body's first signal. Discrete coincidences pull up. The email arrives at the exact moment you decide to finish the proposal. The person you needed to meet appears without effort. The traffic that always delays today flows. The mind loves to call this luck, but luck is just the name we give to coherence when we don't understand its engineering. The field responds to what you sustain, not what you desire, and sustaining begins in the body. If it's useful, keep a simple measure for the next few days. When you think of something and the body contracts, stop and listen a little more. When you think of something and the body opens, walk a little more. You don't need the whole map. You need the next illuminated meter. This is how the tide works. This is how intuition governs without spectacle. When the moon crosses into Pisces, the water will not ask for long speeches. It will ask for brief honesty and proportional acts. A conversation that seemed impossible before can become natural if you enter it with your body aligned. A project that was heavy can recompose itself in new forms if you accept that the right path also requires detachment, and that which should have ended will finally end, not because of drama, but because of maturity. At the end of the day, you don't need to prove anything to your intuition. You need to allow it to test the world for you. If the choice leaves you more present, it is progress. If it steals your presence, it's a sign of not yet. Life becomes much simpler when the compass returns inside. And simple here is not a synonym for easy. It is a synonym for true. There is a type of silence that doesn't ask for escape or distraction. It only asks for presence. When the moon approaches Pisces, this silence changes function. Instead of being the interval between one thought and another, it becomes fertile ground where direction appears without noise. You realize you don't need to defeat the world's noise to hear what matters. You just need to remove your own hurry from within the conversation. The silence that reveals is not empty. It is a condensation of meaning. You sit, place the phone face down, rest your shoulders, and notice the mind trying to manufacture urgencies. Answer now, solve now, decide everything now. The water of Pisces reminds that true urgency doesn't scream. It summons. When the summons is real, the body integrates, the breathing organizes, the heart adjusts its rhythm. Attention lands on what is alive. No pyrotechnics, just direction. This silence is also a language filter. Words that once seemed essential show themselves to be excess. Long explanations reveal the anxiety of being understood. The field asks for integral phrases. Yes, that means yes. No, that ends without aggression. There was no loss of depth. There was a gain in precision. What has matured enough to exist doesn't need accessories. What is still green asks for time in a low voice. On days of high water, imagination can try to hijack intuition. It is a subtle hijacking. You visualize brilliant scenarios, project results, get enchanted by the story, and confuse fantasy with internal reading. The difference rarely lies in the epic details. It lies in the texture. Fantasy puffs up the chest and leaves you euphoric for a few minutes. Intuition relaxes the chest and leaves you responsive for many hours. Fantasy asks for an audience. Intuition asks for commitment. Another risk is using silence as an excuse to postpone inevitable choices. Not the case here. The silence of Pisces does not sustain escape. It thickens the voice of conscience until you accept what you already know. There is a job that doesn't return energy. There is a conversation that needs to happen without detours. There is a behavior that compromises your rest. While you negotiate with the obvious, the tide points out the exit without fanfare. The choice is still yours, but the direction has already been given. Maybe you notice small, almost domestic signals. The music that always worked today bothers you. The coffee makes the heart race. The scenery that used to distract now irritates. They are calibrations. The water removes from the field what distorts the reading. When the noise lowers, you discover your compass was never broken. It was buried by habits that didn't respect your sensitivity. Habit is not identity. It is just repetition. And repetition does not resist a decision sustained by presence. There is still a compassionate layer in this silencer. Pisces doesn't ask you to defeat anyone. It asks that you not betray yourself. Real compassion begins with oneself. It is not permission to remain small. It is authorization to move with kindness while you grow. You don't need to push everything at once. You just need to abandon the war with your perception. When you stop fighting with what you feel, the world stops fighting with you in the same proportion. The silence that reveals the path also delivers a teaching about time. You realize that correct decisions don't happen when the head commands. They happen when the head and body sign together. This is why postponing is sometimes wisdom and sometimes fear. The criterion is in your presence. If the postponement leaves you more lucid and more whole, it prepares. If it leaves you smaller and more confused, it sabotages. The water doesn't question, it shows. In the end, it all comes down to a simple agreement. You agree to listen for real. You agree to act proportionally to what you hear. You agree to sustain the choice long enough for it to generate consequence. The moon entering Pisces doesn't want pretty promises. It wants clean attention. Given this attention, it returns synchronicity. You think of someone, and the person appears. You end a cycle, and the invitation that needed space arises. It is not a miracle. It is coherence operating without noise. Some choices don't happen at the debate table. They happen deep in the chest, when the mind finally accepts it isn't the only authority. As the moon approaches Pisces, this hierarchy quietly changes. First, the body perceives, then consciousness names, and finally the mind organizes. Inverting this order creates noise Respecting it creates direction. A decision made from within doesn't scream. It changes small gestures that, when added up, reposition your life. You close a tab before finishing the scroll. You cancel an appointment that always drains you. You change the jarring music for something that leaves space between thoughts. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. Because intuition doesn't measure progress by visible effort, but by fidelity to what is true when no one is watching. This way of deciding also corrects an addiction. Deciding to please the scenery. The environment will always have expectations, urgencies, and agendas that don't belong to you. Pisces teaches how to differentiate vibration from pressure. Pressure wants an answer now, even if it makes no sense. Vibration holds your hand from within and says, when you are whole, the yes will be a real yes. Deciding from this wholeness saves rework, excuses, and future wear and tear. Another characteristic of internal decisions is the economy of justifications. Explaining too much is usually a symptom of doubt. When the choice is born clean, the sentences shorten. I won't. I can't. It's not for me. This isn't harshness. It's care for your energy. The field understands and responds. People who only stayed when you explained yourself lose interest. People with a similar frequency approach effortlessly. It's not magic, it's resonance. You might feel the temptation to postpone the obvious, to think better. Postponing doesn't expand consciousness. It expands anxiety. What needs more time usually calms down when you pause. What needs courage keeps insisting even after the pause. Notice the difference in texture. Wise postponement pacifies, sophisticated escape keeps you in a cycle. The body reports it. If the chest tightens and breathing shortens, it's not time that's missing, it's decision. Pisces also returns nuance to choices. Not everything is a block, yes or no. You can end things while maintaining respect. You can stay without violating yourself. You can ask for a week without turning it into a crime. What defines if the nuance is maturity or an excuse is your presence. When you are present, nuance organizes. When you are absent, nuance confuses. Intuition is the thread that stitches this difference. And there are the decisions that nobody understands now, and even so, are the most correct ones. Trading a flashy goal for a routine that gives you back sleep. Refusing a good opportunity because it's not the right one. Investing in something that offers no glamour but restores your axis. Pisces sustains this type of silent courage. The reward isn't immediate applause. It's accumulated coherence that, later on, manifests as luck. If a conversation is unavoidable, bring the decision ready to it. People perceive when you are going to see how it goes and when you have already decided with respect. The first posture feeds infinite negotiation. The second ends without violence. On these days of high water, the tone carries as much information as the words. Talk less, talk clean. Talk only once. The rest is noise trying to survive. In the end, deciding from within is a commitment to two verbs, to listen and to sustain. To listen to what the body knows before the mind. To sustain what was heard long enough for reality to reorganize. Anxiety wants proof tomorrow. Intuition gives you signs today. They are discreet but recurrent. The synchronicity that repeats. The invitation that arrives in the exact interval. The feeling of peace after the right choice. Collect these signs. They are the receipt for the path. Trusting is not closing your eyes. It's opening them enough to recognize what is already responding. Here, trust stops being a vague belief and becomes a method. To feel, to legitimize, to sustain. Without spectacle, without forced proofs, without the anxiety of explaining everything. The field doesn't reward performance, it rewards permanence. First pillar, listening that doesn't debate. Arguing with intuition is like arguing with gravity. When the body softens in the face of a path, that is real data. When it tenses, that is also data. The error rarely comes from what you perceive. It comes from what you decide to ignore, to maintain a known script. Silent confidence begins when you stop asking for authorization for what you already feel. Second pillar, to legitimize. It is transforming essence into routine. Whoever says, "I need peace," and continues diving into noise doesn't legitimize what they know. Whoever feels they need focus and organizes the environment legitimizes. Small, constant gestures are worth more than large, occasional promises. The field doesn't measure apparent effort. It measures repeated coherence. Third pillar, to sustain without hurry. Intuition isn't a shortcut, it's direction. The shortcut charges cheaply now and dearly later. Direction accepts that the path reveals itself in layers. You decide, confirm with simple acts, and allow life to return the next coordinates. The interval between decision and response is where many give up. They rename doubt as realism and return to the comfortable. Silent confidence holds the wave. It maintains the simple with respect, while the scenery reorganizes. Avoid turning perception into a public announcement just to feel that something has moved. When the choice is real, first it needs to sound right inside. Then the world hears. Speaking before the time gives the environment a right that is yours. To adjust your step without an audience. Silent confidence also redefines error. Error is not condemnation, it is data. You try, you perceive, you adjust. The faster the adjustment, the lower the cost. What hurts isn't making a mistake, it's insisting out of energetic stubbornness. Intuition doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for honesty. It didn't work. Change the axis, move on. This method changes your social signature. People who live by pulling you into noise lose their reach. Environments that thrived on your dispersion stop being seductive. In return, discreet and precise invitations arrive. Synchronicity instead of a spotlight, functionality instead of drama. It's not luck, it's compatible frequency. Fear will continue to appear, but it gets out of the driver's seat. Self-respect, even if trembling, changes the timbre of reality. Less noise, asking for attention, more answers at the right time. Direction generates energy. When you hesitate, the field hesitates. When you decide, the field decides with you. Begin without noise, maintain the cadence, let the echo work. When the noise ceases, what remains is the contour of your real life. Not the negotiated version, the firm outline of who you are when no one is looking. Here, intuition stops being a moment and becomes a criterion. To accept, to refuse, to remain, to end. A yes without debt, a no without guilt. After training how to listen, some things lost their shine. It's not contempt, it's healthy disinterest. What used to call with urgency reveals itself as noise. At the same time, simple gestures gain density, a text that flows, a meeting that gives back, a rest that truly restores. The change is not in the world, it is in your field. Filtering with precision. With the noise gone, hurry loses its argument. The head accelerates to feel control. The body remembers the rhythm. Answers arrive at the pace you sustain. Intuition doesn't deliver above your strength, it scales. Whenever you try to jump the line, life returns friction. It's not punishment, it's protection of the cadence. Relationships reorganize. Those who responded to your excess find the new measure strange. Those who vibrate with reciprocity notice your clean presence and draw closer. You don't need to preach about boundaries. Your stability communicates. Conversations without foundation diminish on their own. The essential ones deepen. Intuition adjusts the frequency, and the environment responds. The discrete power here is consistency. It's not one grand act, it's the sum of small, correct acts. The day stops being about quantity and becomes about coherence. How many decisions honored what you know? The energy, once spent explaining, is now invested in moving. Rest ceases to be a prize and becomes a method. Pauses don't delay, they calibrate. The next step appears when you are whole to perceive it. And when it appears, the execution is simple. There is no force, there is fit. What doesn't fit, you don't force. What fits, you sustain. In the end, what remains when the noise is gone is a path, visible from within and inevitable from without. You don't need to convince anything to happen. Just keep choosing what has already chosen you. When the mind falls silent and the body breathes at its own rhythm, the path appears, not as a theory, but as a possible step. This is what we train today. To make sensitivity a method. To prioritize what gives back life. To say no without guilt. To say yes without debt. The tide changes, and you have already learned to navigate without wasting strength. Advancing when it fits, waiting when the water asks for silence. The rest is noise. The essential, you feel? Write in the comments with presence. Intuition in command. This phrase is not decoration. It is a commitment to your best reading of the world. Whoever declares directs the field. Whoever sustains sees the path respond.